Hello everyone, let's jump straight into something every serious learner wants clarity on: the official exam syllabus and what you actually need to study. Formally, an exam syllabus defines the structured body of knowledge, competencies, and learning objectives that candidates are expected to understand and apply. In simple English, it's the map of what will be tested. Stay with me here. You've probably seen people study everything, only to realize half of it wasn't even in scope. I once coached a candidate who memorized advanced case studies, but the exam focused heavily on core concepts and definitions. So now that we've mastered what the syllabus represents, you might be wondering how to read it properly instead of just skimming it. And that brings us right into understanding learning objectives. Learning objectives, formally speaking, define the expected cognitive level and capability a candidate must demonstrate in the exam. In simple words, they tell you how deeply you need to understand a topic. Let's break this down together. If the objective says describe, you need clarity. If it says explain, you need deeper understanding. If it says analyze, you need application skill. I once saw a student memorize definitions but struggle with scenario questions because the exam required interpretation. You've probably seen that gap between memorizing and understanding. Stay with me here. Verbs matter in the syllabus. So now that we understand learning objectives, you might be wondering how the syllabus is structured overall. And that brings us into domain weightage. Domain weightage, in formal exam design terms, refers to the percentage distribution of questions across subject areas. In simple English, it tells you where to spend more study time. Let's break this down together. If one domain represents 40% of the exam and another represents 10%, your preparation strategy should reflect that difference. I once coached a professional who spent equal time on all topics, ignoring weightage. The result? Weak performance in the most heavily tested domain. You've probably seen how effort doesn't always equal impact. Stay with me here. Study smart, not just hard. So now that we've mastered weightage, you might be wondering how theory translates into exam-style thinking. And that leads us into scenario-based questions. Scenario-based assessment, formally defined, evaluates a candidate's ability to apply concepts within realistic organizational situations. In simple words, it means you must think like a practitioner, not just repeat definitions. I once reviewed an exam question describing a failing service transition. The correct answer required understanding governance alignment, not just recalling a term. You've probably seen how tricky wording tests real comprehension. Let's break this down together. The exam checks your judgment. Stay with me here. Context is everything. So now that we understand scenario-based questions, you might be wondering what core knowledge areas must be mastered first. And that brings us into foundational concepts. Foundational concepts in formal terms include the service value system, guiding principles, governance, continual improvement, and key management practices. In simple English, these are your building blocks. Without them, advanced questions feel confusing. I once worked with a learner who jumped straight into specialized modules without mastering core principles. The result was fragmented understanding. You've probably seen how skipping basics causes confusion later. Stay with me here. Strong foundations make advanced thinking easier. So now that we've mastered core knowledge, you might be wondering how to balance theory with real-world examples. And that leads us into practical understanding. Practical understanding means interpreting theoretical concepts through real organizational examples. Formally, this aligns with competency-based evaluation in modern certification frameworks. In simple words, you should be able to explain how a concept works in a real company. I often tell my students, if you can explain it to a colleague at work, you truly understand it. I once asked a candidate to explain change enablement using their own workplace example. That clarity improved their exam confidence dramatically. You've probably seen how practical understanding sticks better than memorization. Stay with me here. Application strengthens retention. So now that we understand practical learning, you might be wondering how to structure your revision. And that brings us into study planning. Structured study planning, formally described, involves aligning preparation time with syllabus domains, weightage, and learning objectives. In simple English, this means creating a realistic schedule instead of last-minute cramming. I once coached a professional who studied 30 minutes daily for 6 weeks instead of cramming for 3 days. Their retention and confidence were far stronger. You have probably seen how spaced learning improves memory. Let's break this down together. Consistency beats intensity. Stay with me here. Disciplined preparation reduces exam anxiety. So now that we have mastered planning, the final piece is understanding exam mindset. Exam mindset in formal terms reflects the ability to interpret questions calmly, manage time effectively, and apply knowledge logically under pressure. In simple English, it means thinking clearly during the test. I have seen highly knowledgeable candidates fail because they rushed or second-guessed themselves. You've probably experienced that pressure before. Let's break this down together. Read carefully, eliminate clearly wrong options, align answers with ITIL principles, and trust your preparation. When you understand the syllabus structure, learning objectives, domain weightage, practical application, and revision planning, the exam stops feeling mysterious. It becomes structured and manageable. And that's how you turn the official syllabus from a document into your strategic study roadmap. Well, that brings us right into our next chapter.